Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fly Tying Monday. We have a special week for you in that we have 2 fly tying days this week. We have just me today, tying one of my old patterns. And then on Thursday, we have a tie-off with Tim Flagler. And the fly is a blue charm Atlantic salmon fly because Tim has just gotten back from an Atlantic salmon fishing trip. So he wanted to do an Atlantic salmon fly. I know that it may not be of great interest to a lot of you because it's a sort of a limited market, but it does give you some good ideas and some good techniques for tying things like streamers and even nymphs. So anyway, we will have a tie-off on Thursday at 3 p.m. But today, we're going to tie the TR wire caddis. And I'll kind of wait for people to come in here. I don't know where Julia is today. I don't have anybody producing this today, as far as I know. Tanner's off today. Don't know where Julia is. So I may have trouble answering questions unless somebody comes in and helps me out. I'm also home alone with an 8-week-old Labrador puppy that we picked up on Saturday. So if you hear any howling and screaming in the background, that's my puppy downstairs. So it's might be a little crazy today, but we'll work through it as best we can. So I see people are coming in from all over, from Michigan, and the pup's name is Sedge. So if you are from the UK, you will recognize the name. Sedge is what they call caddisflies in the UK. Actually named sort of after caddisfly and sort of after the plant, because my 17-year-old is a botany freak. So Sedge, we thought Sedge was a good name. It's a good 1-syllable name, kind of cute. So that's the name. Anyway, I see Warren's here from New Zealand, and we've got Oklahoma, and Chad from Vancouver, and Scott from Altoona. So again, please be patient with your questions. I'll try to answer them, but I don't know what happened to my buds today. So I'm here alone with an 8-week-old puppy. So we'll see how things go. I'm going to see if I can. I'm going to put the pattern description in the comments here for you. I have to do it myself, so bear with me. And as you can see, there is a picture of the fly and what it's imitating. All right, let's see if I can make this work. There, it worked. Okay. So there is the didn't format very well, but there's the pattern description. Fairly straightforward. Oops, got to turn the camera on. Turn the cameras on. So it's fairly straightforward and doesn't use a lot of materials. Fairly simple, inexpensive materials. And anyway, so this is an imitation of a cased caddis that is really, really common in most trout streams. I think the genus is Brachycentrus. I'm not sure because I'm not a big. There's Julia. Julia's here.
Hi. Sorry, I was leading another meeting and I'm late. It's great to see you all.
Oh, I cut you off. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just saying it's great to be with you all.
can we announce your news?
Sure.
So
they'll oh, go ahead, Tom. You tell them.
Julia is going to have a baby. What's your due date?
End of February, early March. So we'll have some kind of stand-in host next year, but you got another 6 months out of me, God willing.
All right, Julia, we're all glad you're here.
Next summer I'll be back, and maybe I'll bring my daughter with me. So thank you. You guys are so great. Thank you. Really excited.
All right. So anyways, back to the fly. Let's see. I got to get myself. Oops. I got to get myself. Oh, that's good enough. You probably want to see the fly bigger than me. Anyways. So it's a case caddis, and they're very common, and they attach loosely to rocks, and they let go quite frequently, and then they drift in the current, and then they reattach. So they're in the drift a lot. Fish like them. Fish eat them a lot. They're always there on the bottom of the stream. And so this is my my imitation of this Brachycentrus. And this is a picture of a caddis larva. And you can see it has that, I think they make the case out of vegetable material. And then you can see the little greenish body peeking out, and then the black head and the legs. So the fly has, the similar characteristics, and certainly with a fish in the current, looks close enough to the natural to catch fish, and it works pretty well. You can fish this with a dry dropper. You can fish this naked without any indicator. You can fish it with an indicator. You can Euro nymph with this. You can fish it any way you want. But it is a common food that fish see a lot. So anyway, that's the bug. I'll remove that from the, and I can show it to you again later. So anyways, that's the fly. I guess we should start tying it, right? Anybody have any questions before I start? I think you're more interested in Julia than me today. And that's good. I'm not jealous. I would bring the puppy upstairs and show you, but I don't want to wake him up. He's sleeping. He's sleeping right now, and hopefully he will sleep through this fly tying because I'm home alone with the puppy. So anyway, okay. So let's start. I don't see any questions, but so let's start. Let's start tying. So I'm using a tactical jig hook, which is a barbless jig hook. You don't have to use a jig hook on this. You could tie it. You could use any old hook you want, but that's the hook I'm going to use, and I'm going to take it out because I have to put a bead on it. So I'm going to pick myself out an appropriately sized black bead. These aren't quite as black as I like them, and I don't know what size it is. I don't. My beads get all mixed up, and I just put on a bead that's appropriate for the hook size. And you could use a smaller or a bigger bead on this if you wanted to. This thing sinks pretty well because of the wire. Doesn't have much resistance to. It doesn't have much resistance to sinking. Okay, so there's my bead. I'm going to make sure that it's positioned properly so that it is above the center line, so that it rides point side up. And I'm using 6/0 black thread, and I'm going to jam this thread up against here. Make sure that the bead is positioned properly, and I'll just keep winding And if your bead doesn't sit above the center line of the hook, then just flip it over or wiggle it around until it sits in the right place. And I'm just going to wind until the bead stops wiggling. So now the bead is secure. Yes.
And Tom, Adam had an interesting question. I actually don't know the answer to this. He's asking if the big eye is a specific series, or is it just like a universal feature? Or is it just, it's just like a type of hook that we sell, right?
The big eye is a dry fly hook.
It's a dry fly hook. Okay.
Yeah, these jig hooks have a fairly large eye too. We don't call these big eye, but they do have a fairly large eye. But the big eye hook is a dry fly hook. Yeah, because most dry flies have a little tiny eye, and they're tough to thread. And the big eye just
that's helpful. And you have two other questions. JJ's asking if you got a new vise, and
it's a vise I've had for a while.
Or new vise jaws, maybe.
It's a Renzetti. Actually, I have the Game Changer jaws in there, which are not. I mean, they work just fine for this. I was tying Game Changers. Well, last time we tied, it was a Game Changer type. So I just left the jaws in there instead of changing them out. It works fine.
Okay. And then you might have seen this, but Mark was asking if you ever super glue the bead into the spot so to minimize thread wraps.
No, because I want to build up that head a little bit, Mark. You could super glue it. That's fine. You could super glue it, but I'm not concerned about minimizing thread wraps because I want to build up a little bit of a head behind that bead anyway. So yeah, you could if you wanted to, though. It'll work fine. All
right, that's it for now.
Okay. All right, now we're going to make the body, and you might want to take a look at the brachycentrus or the cased caddis in your particular stream and vary the color, because they do vary depending on what kind of plant material they have to make with their case with. So in my stream, what I like is one strand of copper brown. So I'm gonna pull a strand of copper brown from the spool, and then I like two strands of black. And this is let's see, what size wire is this? This is brassy size. So I use two strands of black. And then sometimes they have a little bit of a lighter color. So I'm going to take one strand of ginger for a little accent. And the best way to handle these wires is, because you probably want to tie a bunch of these, is to tie an overhand knot in the end. Probably should have twisted those before I did that, but no big deal. Just tie an overhand knot in the end of these wires. That'll keep them together. I got two. Yep. And then what I'll do is I'll cut off the other end to even it off. Just makes it. I gotta get my pliers. Just makes it easier to tie it in. So I'll just pull these until I get to the shortest one, and then just cut these off so that the ends are nice and even. And now I've got enough wire to tie, three or four flies without having to redo the wire. And then you just probably twist them a little bit and just start them right up against the bead and wind back. You don't want this too thick. If you remember looking at that thing, it was pretty skinny. And I'll come back to there. Oop, looks like I lost focus there. How's that better? There we go. And so now I'm just going to take those 4 wires and I'm just going to wind them. And I don't really care how they end up, because the bug itself has a lot of variegation in it. So I'm just going to wind them however they, and I'm going to go almost to the bead and tie those off. It's a little sloppy there. You know what? I'm going to start over because it's a little sloppy there. Let's get this. Let's get this right here. Let's get this right. Make it a little more even. There. And so you can do this with lots of different nymphs with different colored ultra wire to give yourself some variegation. And you're going to tie that off, and I don't think you really want to helicopter all these wires. I don't think it'll work very well. So I am going to use wire cutters. Cut it off short. Now I've got a piece of wire to tie some more, and I'll just come in and kind of tweak that with your finger to bend those wires down and build up a little bit more there. See, Mark, you do want to build up this head here when you put the legs in. Okay, so
We
got
do
the
have
body.
a couple other questions, Tom.
Okay. Shoot.
Edward's asking if you would ever tie it without a bead.
Yeah, why not? Sure.
And I think I missed one. And Tommy was asking if you could use another color bead, but I imagine you absolutely cannot.
Absolutely not. The bead police will come to your house if you don't use a black bead. No, you can use it. You can use any colored bead you want. If you look at the bug, it has quite a black head. So I would use a black bead, but if you don't want to, you don't have to.
And then John was asking if you've ever considered twisting before you wrap.
It makes it harder to wrap.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking.
And I want a thin body. I don't want to really. It would make the body bulkier. But you could try it for a different kind of fly. It might make an interesting fly. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. That's it for now.
All right. Okay. Now you're going to take any old black hackle. This is just a black saddle hackle. Doesn't really matter. Down toward the base, usually. And you're going to grab, 6, 8 fibers. Insects have 6 legs, but fish don't count. And very important, you're going to want to pluck these, not cut them. Because what you want, I'll show you these. What you want are these fuzzy little ends that look kind of like the claws on the caddisfly. So if you pluck them, you get that effect. Looks just like the tarsal joints on the caddis larva. And so you're just going to maybe even those out a little bit if you want. The legs on the insect are not even, and you want them to stick out, a little bit in front of the bead. You just tie them in like so, and then they're going to stick up like those legs on the natural. So they look pretty buggy, don't they? They look like insect legs. And then to finish it off, told you this is an easy fly. It doesn't show that well on this picture because I think this caddisfly had been out of the water for a while, but the body on this thing, the worm in the larva inside this case is quite bright, and this gives you a hot spot, and it also gives you the bright green color of that caddis larva. Plus, it's going to darken a little bit when it gets wet. So I use a nice bright. This is Caddis Green Ice Dubbing from Hairline. You don't need much, just a little bit. That's like enough for 3 flies there. And you're going to just dub a nice tight noodle on here. And you don't want much. You just want a little bit of that green peeking through. And that's probably enough. Sometimes the caddisflies stick out a little bit farther. Sometimes they're just barely peeking out. So you wind on your thorax. That's actually, you know what? That's too much. That's a little bit too big. I'm gonna remove some of that. I just want a little bit there. Yeah, that's better. Oh. Yeah, that's good enough. So you just want a little bit of that green there. If you got some fibers that are a little long, you trim them off. And that's it. You whip finish. Put a drop of head cement on there. And you're done. So it's a nice, relatively exact imitation of that caddis larva. But it's quick, cheap, inexpensive. Using a junky old hackle. And you know, I can't believe nobody's asked me yet, should I put some UV resin on the body? And I would say no, because the wire, particularly on this wire here, if you notice, the body of the bug, the case, is not that shiny. And yeah, if you wanted to, and the wire is super durable. So you don't really need to put any epoxy on this body. You could if you wanted to, but the natural is kind of dull and not shiny. So I wouldn't put any resin on. You don't need it, and you can just fish it this way. Put a drop of head cement so that the fly doesn't unravel after you catch a couple fish, and go for it. You want to. This is a good, Mike. This is a good all-season fly because these case caddis are always in the water. They're always there. I see them all times of year, whether they have multiple broods or whether they maybe have a 2-year life cycle. I don't know, but they are there all year long. So this would be a good spring fly, a good summer fly, a good fall fly, a good winter fly. They're always around. You obviously want to fish this dead drift. You don't want to swing this. You don't want to add any action to it. These things, when they let go of a rock, are just going to tumble in the current. They're not going to swim. They're not going to twitch. They're not going to hatch. This thing has to develop a pupa inside the case, which would then emerge to the surface. And these caddisflies are fairly small. They're like an 18 or 20 when they hatch. Do not swing it, Roger. Do not swing it. You want a tight line, or you want a dry dropper, or you want an indicator fish, but you want a dead drift. I don't think it would work swinging, and I wouldn't. Paul has a good question. When these cases are drifting, they're going to be anywhere in the water column, really, because once they get knocked loose from a rock, they're going to tumble and they're going to be carried around in the current until they can reattach. So they might be near the bottom, but they might be in mid-water. They probably won't be just under the surface unless the water is really shallow. But probably, I would fish this relatively deep just because it's a bottom dwelling organism. Any other questions? Could you use orange dubbing for October caddis? Ed, I don't know what the cases look like in October caddis. Oh, the October caddis actually is makes its case from pieces of vegetable matter, sticks. It's a much bigger larva, and it's a crawling larva. It actually crawls usually in slower water in the shallows. And there's pieces of plants and sticks sticking out from an October caddis. It's a cased cat. It's cased caddis, but it's a different kind of cased caddis. So for the October caddis, I wouldn't use this pattern. I would use something like a waltz worm, something with hair's ear that's got lots of stuff sticking out of it, a roughly dubbed body for the October caddis. This is more for those ones that live on top of rocks. Would you use this as a dropper under a floating caddis fly? I would, Ed. I'd use it as a dropper under anything, any floating fly that I can see. Yeah. Yep. And don't forget that these things break loose. They may not be hatching. They're just there all the time, and they break loose. Wading anglers knock them loose, or the current knocks them loose. If you look at the rocks, if you look at these things on the rocks, they're actually crawling around on the rocks. They're actually moving around on the rocks. So they do get knocked off the rocks fairly frequently. They're not hard attached to a rock like some of the other caddis flies are, where they're almost cemented to a rock. These things are kind of crawling around on the rocks. So they do get knocked loose fairly often. Any other questions? The next tie-off is this Thursday. I introduced it before Julia got here, but a lot of you might have come in a little late. So we're tying the blue charm Atlantic salmon fly, hair-wing blue charm Atlantic salmon fly, this Thursday at 3 p.m. with Tim Flagler, with the great Tim Flagler. As I said earlier, he's been salmon fishing and he wanted to tie a salmon fly. And I said, nobody's interested in salmon flies, but he said, well, I want to tie one anyways. So I said, okay, you'll learn some good techniques in it. Any other questions? I think we got through it without any puppy whining, so that was good. Glad I picked an easy fly for today. In the UK, we have a variant or peeping caddis with hare's ear body and a white head, burnt with a match. Cool. Sounds like a good pattern. The dog is not a rescue. The dog was. We have another 6-year-old lab who we are madly in love with, and we wanted to go to the same kennel out of the same line. So no, the dog's not a rescue. All right. Well, you know what? Oh, God, we've only. I'm gonna go. I'll go get the puppy. I'll go get the puppy.
Wake him up.
Yeah, because we're almost done. So. Hey, Sedge. You want to come up, buddy? Come on, buddy. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Oh. There you go. Okay. Here he is, folks. Say hi, Sedge. Say hi, Sedge. He's a little sleepy, and he's probably going to pee on my lap because he just got up. So, but he's as most puppies are. He's wild at times, but right now he's pretty quiet, pretty mellow, pretty mellow. Say hi, Sedge. Say hi. Anyway, that is Sedge, folks, and that is fly tying for today. And I want to thank you all for coming in and admiring my puppy and asking some great questions. And we will have a tie off on Thursday, which I will probably lose because I haven't been salmon fishing in a while, and Tim's probably been tying a lot of salmon flies, so I'm probably going to lose, but that's okay. I usually lose anyways, most of the time. So anyway, thank you all for coming today. We'll see you on Thursday, and hope you're all getting out and enjoying some nice fall weather. Bye. Say goodbye, Sedge. Boy, he's really quiet.